Well, I think it's really important to understand that most of Christian teaching has wrongly taught that the sons of God were the sons of Seth, and that's not the case, because in the Bible, from the very first chapters of Genesis, everything that God created was after its likeness and kind, and God saw that it was good. When you're dealing with hybridization, whether animals, and by the way, that's one of the reasons that the pre-Adamic race was judged, was due to their genetic experiments. So all of these vast stories of ancient civilizations, when they started with messing around with, and they weren't human beings at that point, but the animals and all of their genetic constructs. The number one question I get asked is, were those the guys that genetically created dinosaurs? Well, I would say this, based on some of the evidence from our Mexican digs, I mean, there's some really strange creatures in those. And again, Gary, the Smithsonian has covered it up. They seized 35,000 artifacts from a gentleman in Mexico, right where we're digging from our expeditions, which are available from Prophecy Watchers, and showing in film. We're digging the holes. Guys are going down, in one case, 9 feet, digging this stuff with their hands, because you got to be careful when you're doing it. I mean, they didn't have everything, that we have access to. But what was interesting is that in real time, they're pulling up artifacts with some of the most interesting glyphs. A glyph would be the writing around the frame. That's a Stargate, by the way. And being able to interpret those, and it's not an easy task. Over the couple of years, this is something important. I spent a lot of time, and there's multiple, I think 8 PhDs, Asiatic languages, these guys, and by the way, they're experts, and they use supercomputers. So take, Gary, those, hold up, if you wouldn't mind holding up the cover, all those symbols that people are seeing around the radial and then the Mars in the middle. It's interesting that those would be found on Mesoamerican artifacts that are dug up for people to watch. But the most curious thing is there are instructions how to open and close the gates, and where you're going, where you're coming back from. Now, Raiders of the Lost Ark was famous for the scene at the end where the Ark is put in a crate and put in a giant warehouse, and then basically taken out of sight. But what's really interesting right now, there's a Native American prophecy, the Hopi prophecy, talking about the man in the red hat, and talking about, you're going to love this, talking about disclosure of aliens, okay, star people, and star craft in the latter years of the man in the red hat. Well, if that's President Trump, then that disclosure is going to come. And I think that I want people to understand this, that to take 500, you'll appreciate this, take 500,000 of those symbols, okay, I don't know, even on the Haunebu spacecraft or the Nazi bell, there were strange symbols. And unless people understand that Heinrich Himmler and the Third Reich was steeped in occultism, and even Werner von Braun, famous, former head of NASA, Hermann Oberth, second most famous missile scientist in the world, are talking about, it's not that the German scientists were smarter than everybody else's scientists, but they had help from the other side. Very famous name in the Nazi world is Dietrich Ehrhardt. They literally would bring forth evil spirits during their seances, and I'll try and say this tastefully and tactfully, but that would give birth to almost ectoplasmic entities that were translucent, that would dictate events. Science, tell them advanced history, ancient history. So the Third Reich in the occult is a phenomenon, and it's going to come back with Fast and Furious. And the ramifications, I tell people, the ramifications of the gates of hell are the damnifications of untold billions of people to hell unless they repent, accept Jesus Christ as Lord. It's that late in the game.